Will your next UPI payment cost you money? That is the question spreading across social media after Parliament cleared a bill that changes the legal framework around digital payment charges. But here's the important part. UPI has not suddenly become chargeable. The law does not impose a fee on every UPI transaction. It creates a framework under which charges could be introduced later through notification, and the government has said ordinary users will continue to use UPI for free. So, who could actually pay? The answer is potentially large merchants. Out of many proposals being discussed, one is that an MDR merchant discount rate on UPI payments above 2000 rupees could be settled at around 0.3% to 0.5% for businesses with annual turnover above roughly 1.5 crore rupees. But these are reported proposals, not a final rate or rule. That means your neighborhood panwari, flower seller, vegetable vendor, or small kirana store would not automatically start paying MDR simply because they accept UPI. Under the reported proposal, businesses with turnover up to Rs 1.5 crore would be exempt irrespective of the transaction size. The businesses more likely to feel the impact are larger retailers, e-commerce companies, high-value merchants, and other businesses processing sizable commercial payments. And there's a reason policymakers are looking at the 2000 rupee mark. Transactions above 2000 rupees reportedly make up only around 4% of UPI transaction volume but account for about 67% of its total transaction value. So charging on this segment could create revenue for the payment ecosystem without putting a fee on the millions of small everyday UPI payments. In simple terms, the proposal is trying to target value, not volume. A small shop processing hundreds of 100 rupee payments would be treated very differently from a large retailer processing thousands of 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees payments. But there is another question: who ultimately bears that cost? Technically, MDR is a merchant site fee. The customer doesn't receive a UPI bill or a separate transaction charge. But if a retailer has to pay, say 0.5% on a 10,000 rupee transaction, that's 50 rupees coming out of the merchant's economics. A business could absorb that cost, negotiate with its payment provider, or eventually factor some of it into its prices, or just simply avoid UPI on larger payments and demand cash. So, while the customers may not be directly charged for UPI, there is a possibility of an indirect price impact if merchants pass some of the cost through. That isn't guaranteed, it depends on competition and how merchants respond. There is, however, one question around this move: why now? The Finance Ministry maintains that the decision is about creating a sustainable model for India's digital payment infrastructure and not about external pressure. But the timing has raised questions. Financial Express and News 18 have reported that India's wider trade negotiations with the United States could be part of the backdrop. The US has previously raised concerns about India's zero-MDR model and pushed for what it sees as a more level playing field for international payment networks. But for the average Indian merchant, the immediate takeaway is much simpler. Your UPI QR code is not suddenly becoming chargeable. The debate is about whether large merchants should eventually pay for the infrastructure they use and how much of that cost, if any, ultimately reaches the customer. So the real question is, should UPI remain completely free for merchants, or is it time for the businesses processing India's biggest digital payments to pay for the infrastructure behind them?